welcome and thanks for joining us for Global Rights for Women Now. I'm Lizz Winstead. I'm a comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show, a reproductive rights activist, and returning to you as the MC of this incredible event.
And I'm Cheryl Thomas, and I'm so excited that you are here again, Lizz, with us. I'm the founder and executive director of Global Rights for Women. And if you're new to this community, first off, welcome, and allow me to introduce myself. For close to 30 years, I've been working with partners around the world on an ambitious and clear mission, and that is to end violence against women and girls. Our goal has always been to make sure that women have access to the safety and the justice they deserve. This critical work has taken Global Rights for Women to over 30 countries, and last year we've done more work across our own home state of Minnesota than ever before. But I will tell you, in all of my years of experience, I have never seen a more critical time than now to take action. Last year, we talked a lot about the impact of the COVID pandemic on violence against women. Gender-based violence continues to thrive and is compounded by political instability. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have returned to power. There's a civil war in Ethiopia that's deeply affecting women's human rights to be free from violence.
And Cheryl, the rights of women are often on the chopping block, right? They're always sacrificed in crisis.
Exactly.
And we are already in crisis.
We started in crisis.
We're always in crisis, right? Domestic and sexual violence are the most prevalent forms of violence against women in the world. 1 in 3 women worldwide will experience physical or sexual abuse in her lifetime. Mm-hmm. You know, 137 women a day are killed mostly by male family members. Mm-hmm. And yet, fewer than 40% of the women who experience violence will ever seek any kind of help.
That's 50,000 women per year, Lizz.
With your help today, we have an ambitious goal to raise $275K. And as we speak, actually the we, meaning I, we have less than $40,000 to go. So basically, if one of you fantastic people out there just wants to dump some 40K right in, we could just have a fabulous party with all of our amazing speakers and talent. So think about that. But I want you to know that every dollar of your donation will help support efforts to keep women safe, hold offenders accountable, and create systemic change. In addition to table hosts and sponsors, we also have a generous group of donors who have given $65,000 to this event. And today, they are challenging all of you to do the same. Now let's talk about what that means in Southeast Asia, for example. There, Global Rights for Women has a program to improve how victims are treated by the system so they are not afraid to take their cases to court. That project alone will impact women in 34 countries. Say it with me, 34 countries. Your donation last year made that happen. It made a difference in someone's life, and we're asking for you to do it again. We have a fantastic lineup of guests today. We'll hear from U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, who I adore, and she is a powerful example of what common sense female leadership looks like. Cheryl will speak with Zainab Salbi, an Iraqi journalist and feminist activist, and Gary Barker, a leading global voice in engaging men and boys in gender equality, will also be joining us. And you definitely don't want to miss hearing from the women and leaders who work with Global Rights for Women on the front lines of violence prevention around the world. And me, a comedian and reproductive rights advocate who's a dedicated garbage firefighter trying to hose down the flames of sexism and oppression for decades in the U.S. Here's looking at you, Texas.
It's now my great pleasure to introduce Zainab Salbi. Zainab is an Iraqi humanitarian, author, and founder of Women for Women International, and host of the new podcast, Redefined. If you're familiar with her work, you'll know that Zainab has always sought to put an individual woman's face, a name, a story to the conflicts and the problems that we so often see splashed across the headlines. This act of storytelling is one of the foundational principles that has made Women for Women International so successful in its mission. The act of storytelling is also one of the critical components of the work we do at Global Rights for Women.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to be among loving and encouraging and supportive sisters. As you know, I've been working on the crisis in Afghanistan, honestly, since we learned of the Taliban, takeover of one province after the other. It wasn't only that they were taking over, that they have been assassinating women leaders in the last year, targeted assassination one by one of anyone who they see as a leader and whose voices and values are seen as threatening by the Taliban. And so when they took the Kabul over, we realized that there was no plan to evacuate not all the women leaders, because it's impossible. And some of them, frankly, chose to stay in the country, but to evacuate those whose lives are at risk and want to leave and are scared for their lives and their families. But then also, on the other hand, there was an unbelievable, incredible show of sisterhood from all over America and the world, who got together and said, we will do everything possible to get our sisters out, to support them, to financially, to support their voices, and we shall not rest until they are safe.
And you, as a journalist, have been so beautifully articulate about and passionate about telling women's stories. Mm-hmm. We mentioned your podcast. Would you talk about that?
Well, I mean, I learned to see the world to see that there's a separation between how men see the world and women see the world as a child. I grew up in Baghdad, Iraq, and there was the war. I grew up in a war with Iran. And I would remember as a child, I would see the news and they're covering the war from a men's perspective, as in that, the soldiers and the army and the plane and the planes and whatever, this battle and that battle. But my life as a girl was run by women who are keeping my life going. It was not only my mother, but the teachers and the doctors and the factory workers and the policewomen, and everyone in the civilian world was women, actually, who were like keeping life going. And so ever since, everything I look, everything I do is making sure that we have women's perspective and we see it from a woman's perspective. And not because to be politically correct or anything like that, because women are the carrier of the light. They are the carrier of life. And if we exclude them from that, then we are killing hope and we're killing dreams and we're killing possibilities for a better future. When women do well, the whole society does well. This is not about, even for me, of course, it's about ultimately doing the right thing and the ultimate and justice, right? But also there's a pragmatism in why we need to defend women and girls, basically, and why we need to end violence against women and girls. Because when violence gets ended against women and girls, usually they tend to then work more, have more productivity, and it has direct impact on society's financial well-being and stabilities and peace. I mean, this is studied, tracked, it's like all the proofs that we were asked to give. We were like, here it is.
With everything going on in the world right now, we certainly know, what happens in Afghanistan doesn't stay in Afghanistan. It has a ripple effect. Why is it so important to support global rights for women right now?
It is so pivotally important to support global rights for women right now, actually, because global security is related to it. Global security is related to it. When ISIS took over 1/3 of Iraq, the first thing they did, and Syria, the first thing they did is attack women and girls. For me, what happens to women and girls is an indicator for the direction of society. If they are being attacked, we need to watch it. This is going to be more insecurity in that country. If they're being treated well and they are thriving, it means this country is going through a good trajectory economically and politically. So we need to see it as an indicator rather than a side box that we check. Oh, let's do some for global securities for women and girls, right? So, but it's in pivotally important to defend it, to protect it, to fund it, to be honest, because other insecurities happens as a result if women and girls are not protected and defended. And if it's not prioritized, because that's the lower denominator. So if you prioritize it, you're increasing the bar and you're making sure that it doesn't get lowered. And for women and girls, but for everyone else.
Beautifully put. And thank you for that. And thank you so much for your support of Global Rights for Women. We are honored to have you with us. We are grateful for your partnership, and we will move forward together towards a safer, more equal world for women and girls and for everyone.
Treated so bad. Tell me why. Am I treated so bad? You know I'm all alone as I sing this song. Hear my call. I done nobody wrong, but I'm treated so bad. Mighty long way. You know it's got no end. Just a better way. You know they'll never change. Think I heard somebody call my name. Further up the road, things are gonna change till I'm treated so bad. Oh yeah. You know, we as women, we've struggled a long time to find equity and inclusion. But today, there are organizations like this amazing organization we're here with today that are constantly turning the heat up and making changes, making the world better for people like me and for all of the other young girls and women in the world. But I know that you get discouraged sometimes too. There are times you can't find the words to say, how do I make it better? How do I make a change? Well, when those moments hit, I want you to do what we used to do back home. We used to moan it out. There's power sometimes when you can't find the words in moaning. And it simply sounds like this. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Think I heard somebody call my name. Further up the road, things are gonna change. Think I heard somebody call my name. Further up the road, things are gonna change. Said I heard somebody call my name. Hey. Further up the road, things are gonna change till I'm treated so bad. Woo! Jevetta and I are adding our voices to the millions of voices who are working and mobilizing to end the violence against women and girls, both locally and globally, and to also lift up the survivors. So please, won't you donate to Global Rights for Women today?
All you have to do is donate. Use your donation as an opportunity to tell people what you know about the state of violence against women and girls around the globe. Use your donation as an opportunity to enlighten someone about how far we still have to go to support survivors. Every person who has donated has a role to play in the story about how we end violence against women. To everyone else, you, hey you, I'm talking to you, doom scrolling and eating a sandwich over there, just text 41444. It's easy. You'll be done in less than 30 seconds, and it's a small but real action you can take to help the world.
We are so thrilled to be joining this gathering, Global Rights for Women Now. I'm Cheryl Jenkins, President and CEO of the ERA Coalition and the Fund for Women's Equality, a partnership of nearly 200 organizations representing millions of people across the country fighting for equal rights for women in the United States. The Equal Rights Amendment would add fundamental constitutional underpinnings for the fight to end violence against women. It states that one cannot be discriminated against based on one's sex. We are closer than we have ever been. It is up to all of us to make sure that our representatives know that we want equality and we want it now. Girls and women must live free from violence, but rich in opportunities. Thanks so much to everyone here for such great work on behalf of girls and women around the world.
Carol Jenkins, you are a national treasure. I have to tell you, Carol Jenkins believes in a future where women and girls in the United States are truly equal and live free from violence. And we're here to support women to achieve that same future all around the globe. So I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to the sponsors, the donors, the table hosts, and the match pool contributors who are making an incredible impact in the lives of so many. Don't forget that match pool of donors who raised $65K before this event even started are challenging all of us today to do the same. And we accept that challenge. I'm speaking for all of us when I say we. So remember, every dollar you give right now by texting Global Rights to 41444 gets us one step closer to shattering this event goal. Because of your generosity, people will be there to help survivors every day, and especially in emergencies. And who knows, if you donate right now, you might even get to talk to me in this computer box.
Hello, this is Imani Jaafar.
Hi, it's Lizz Winstead.
Hey, Liz.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm calling from Global Rights for Women Now, and I just wanted to thank you for all of your support. And now, for folks that don't know, you're currently on the board, but you've also worked with Global Rights for Women in your capacity as a person responsible for safeguarding civil rights, not only globally, but for the city of Minneapolis. So tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing.
I actually started working with Global Rights for Women before I joined the board, and Global Rights for Women was a community partner with us in trying to help the Minneapolis police respond better to domestic violence calls. And they were such an amazing partner, and I enjoyed working with them so much that I actually joined their board.
Amazing. And so tell me a little bit about the perspective you bring when we talk about international expertise and how you bring that back home to Minnesota.
Well, in addition to working on civil rights issues locally, I'm also a woman of color. I am Arab, I'm Muslim, and I think it's really important, having grown up in a very multicultural household, to bring that both to your local community, but also bring that outside perspective.
I always love to ask people who are working in these intersectional fields with so many places to donate, what inspired you to give today, and just especially to Global Rights for Women?
There's a lot of domestic violence advocacy groups who are wonderful, but what really drew me to Global Rights for Women is that there are so many individual women that are helped, but when you change big systems, and I know that from doing civil rights work, that's where the long-standing change comes that makes it better for the community, and especially for vulnerable women and victims of domestic violence. So the fact that they're leading with trying to make sustainable legal reform, policy reform, and doing it successfully, that's what really drew me into their work.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for everything you do. And it's just such a pleasure. And thank you for being such a strong advocate and for donating today. You're the best. Thanks, Imani.
Yeah, you are the best, Liz. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Hello. This is John Bale.
Hi, John Bale. It's Liz Winstead calling you from Global Rights for Women Now. And first off, I just wanted to thank you for your support. But I also really wanted to let folks who are participating in this event know that you are a founder of Global Rights for Women and since 2014. And also you have been crucial in bringing men to the issue. And I would love for you to talk about why this is also an issue that men need to care about.
Well, that's a really, really big question. But, I guess I would say I look at it, we've got a really, really big team of human beings on this planet, and if you're thinking about it as a team, you got half men and half women. And what's going on the women's side of that team is pretty appalling. And we're all in this together, and women are half of this entire human race. And they're experiencing a lot of violence, a lot of abuse. And, I'm a part of that. I'm a part of a team of humanity, and men should be every bit a part of this in making sure that this wrong is righted. I guess it's a very fundamental feeling for me.
I love that. And I also think hashtag Team Humanity is really the way to go. And I want to thank you for tirelessly representing and for really offering up to men an opening, because I think a lot of times men don't know where the opening is. So thank you so much for your work, John. You are a champ.
Thank you.
Mr. Jerry Blackwell is the founding partner and CEO of Blackwell, Burke, PA law firm. He's also a powerful voice for social justice in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You'll probably recognize him, however, from the moving arguments he presented during the Derek Chauvin trial, where Mr. Blackwell volunteered his time to the prosecution. He's got a very special message for everyone who is calling in today.
Greetings, everybody. I want to offer my voice of support for the work of Global Rights for Women in their efforts to bring about a better world, a better humanity, where the human rights of women and girls are simply what it means to be a human, a citizen of the United States of the world. Every one of you matters to this effort. Your attendance here expressing your support matters. You be the change that you want to see in the world. And that through our own efforts, we can manage to reform ourselves by our examples alone. We can reform thousands, each and every one of us, just by our own examples. The highest human value for me is life itself, supporting life and opposing suffering. I am pleased that in supporting human rights for women and girls, we're kindred spirits. Thank you all.
No, thank you, Mr. Blackwell. You are a champion. And look at these numbers. We're getting closer to reaching our event goal. And if everyone watching today donates 25, 50, $100, we could make sure that women all over the world feel heard, supported, and that the institutions designed to protect them are actually serving their needs. Global Rights for Women provides the tools that help the organizations on the ground to break down the social, legal, and administrative barriers that so often prevent women from seeking and finding the services and justice they deserve. These warrior women are the true heroes who work on the front lines with survivors against violence every single day. We're going to meet a few of them, but first, Keiko Matsui.
Hi, I'm pianist and composer Keiko Matsui. I am adding my voice to mobilizing millions of voices to end violence against women and girls locally and globally, and lift up survivors. Please support Global Rights for Women. I have been traveling with my music in many different parts of the world. I have seen difficulty, and also I had great experiences. And at the concert, I always feel very fortunate because music connects us beyond the culture, religion, language. So I believe that music is a gift from universe or God for us. I'd like to dedicate a special song. It's called Forever, Forever.
My name is Maro Matosian. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Support Center.
My name is Julie Escobar. I am the co-founder and president of Global Women Fresh.
I'm Alicia Wallace, queer Black feminist and director of Equality Bahamas.
You know, when we first started to work in the domestic violence field, we were novices. We didn't know anything. We didn't know anybody. I met Sheriff Thomas and Melissa Skaya, and I was very, very impressed with their presentations. And it was sort of like a love at first sight.
We partnered together. We brought a different set of webinars. And the webinars were intended to educate the women around domestic violence, giving them tools, giving them an 800 number or some sort of a number, a local number where they could go in case that they were suffering through this.
Educated or non-educated women, they find the right words to express what they felt and what they thought at that moment. And this is the most powerful thing to shake these people up.
This kind of work requires widespread education, widespread campaigning, understanding that knocking on the door of the government in and of itself does not work.
This being a global issue, it is so important that women organizations who are in more developed countries and more established, more experienced, they are able to help organizations like ours.
In 2017, Global Rights for Women worked with the Republic of Georgia to equip police and legal practitioners with a risk assessment tool to help spot offenders who might inflict lethal violence. In 2021, the Global Rights for Women team checked back in with our Georgian counterparts to assess the progress that they had made and to see if adjustments were needed to the program. Intern Hannah Sobhani worked with the team and saw firsthand the impact that this kind of work can have.
We interviewed judges, police officers, prosecutors, investigators, shelter workers. My takeaway was seeing how the last few years, hearing the workers share how the social attitudes of domestic violence has changed over the last few years. Before, when women would call the police, literally nothing would be done. And now there is a tool and there is a way police can engage with victims and ask them questions that are backed in research. And a judge even shared that the court receives more criticism because it's gaining this reputation of always choosing women and discriminating against men. But in reality, there just has not been justice for women in the past. And now there is. If women experience violence, they should be heard at least. There should be justice. And my experience this summer has really opened my eyes to the gaps there are between women who experience violence and getting justice for that, not only in Georgia or wherever Global Rights for Women has a partnership, but here in the US as well. And so it has really just kind of started a fire in me, like there needs to be justice and it needs to be widespread.
Thank you, Hannah. Not only have you been a fantastic intern, but you've really captured the spirit of why we founded Global Rights for Women in 2014. One of the things we talk about so often in this work is how little justice there is for survivors and how accountability is so rare throughout the world, even though it might only need to take the form of hearing a survivor's story, listening to her, believing her. In 2020, we incorporated this further into our work as part of Pathways to Family Peace. This is a transformational behavior change program for violent offenders. But you know, one of the most common questions I get asked all the time is about what role men have to play in the journey towards equality, safety, and justice for women. I asked Gary Barker for his thoughts. Gary is the president and CEO of Promundo-us and a leading global voice in engaging men and boys in advancing gender equality and promoting positive masculinity. Welcome, Gary. We are so honored to have you with us here today. What a time in our world to be talking about violence against women and girls.
Cheryl, thanks for having me. And I think, as you said, we know globally that about 1 in 3 women has experienced or will experience violence from a man in her lifetime. Most of those are male partners, not always. And we know that about 1 in 3 men have used violence against a woman. And I think as we look at those numbers, we have to say probably 2/3 of men haven't used violence against women, but we're not doing nearly enough to say the 2/3 of us who don't think this is okay and don't use violence against women need to be part of the solution. We need to call out the harm that we see other men do. We need to be part of holding politicians accountable for funding and laws. We need to add our voice to part of the solution. It's women's rights advocates who have been doing this work, shouldering this work for so many years, and yet it is men who carry out the violence. We need men to be part of breaking the silence about it and to say that not using violence is not good enough as a man. I need to be part of actively speaking out against it. But I think what we've tried to do is to say, what is the equation that says we want to call men in to a better way of being men?
Oh, that's
empathetic, caring, we care about equality, we live it. And I think at the same time, when we do that, we start to bring men into a conversation that says we benefit from gender equality as well. We get to be better, more caring, connected human beings when we embrace an idea that manhood is not about dominance, it's not about violence, it's not about ignoring when my body is under mental or physical stress, that I get to be a better human being when I embrace this idea of manhood is not being superior to womanhood, that men are not superior to women, that violence is not a way that I answer conflicts. And we think we've not done nearly enough to call men into that, to the benefits to us as men when we live and breathe gender equality.
We so embrace that at Global Rights for Women too, Gary, this idea that, when you're working towards a world where women's human rights are fully respected and violence against women is has come to an end. This is not a world that's just better for women. It's better for everybody.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a specific question too here that we so often encounter in our work when we are in our own community and other countries around the world. Women are so often shamed and blamed when they share their stories of abuse. They face doubt, they face criticism. What can you elaborate on the social change that needs to happen to make sure that women are believed and supported when they tell these stories?
I mean, I do think a key part of this work is getting men to step out of our silence, to speak up when we see the harm that is carried out by other men, and to listen to women, to take seriously women's complaints, women's accounts of harassment, violence of all kinds, and abuse. And I think we do have to ask ourselves, as the men who are in the room, when what Governor Cuomo has carried out, when what Jeffrey Epstein carried out, when what Bill Cosby carried out, when what R. Kelly carried out, when what Harvey Weinstein carried out, the number of powerful men in the room who sat in silence when they saw abuse be carried out. And in some cases, we're part of saying, we're part of smear campaigns against women who dared to speak out. We as men collectively need to feel shame about that and to turn that shame into action. And I think the first part, and where we start in our work, is to say, what do men need to do in workplaces and locker rooms? And it is to listen to women, listen to women's accounts of what's happening.
So Gary, Global Rights for Women works on law and policy and systemic change that promotes women's human right to be free from violence all over the world. What is so important about these laws and this systemic change?
We know from our research and lots of other women's rights advocates and researchers over the years that the strongest response to ending violence against women is laws and policies in place and enforced to hold men accountable when they use violence, whether that's harassment in the workplace, to violence in the home, to sexual exploitation in multiple spaces. So what you all do to push that envelope at Global Rights for Women is urgent and necessary. It's not done. And I hope that all those who support your work, us included, understand that this is years long. And so we need to, all of us need to continue supporting what you do and other advocates in the field to put those laws into place, to make sure they work, to monitor how they work, and to help others in other countries do the same. So I applaud you for that work, and we are thrilled to be your partners in it.
I love you, Gary Barker, because I think we have done ourselves a disservice far too long by disengaging from men and to have men talking to each other about what masculinity has been, how it hasn't worked for us, and how men are now realizing that rights for women are human rights and that men need to be in that fight. So I am so excited about that conversation and the work Gary is doing. And the work that Global Rights for Women does continues to be made possible by the generosity from every single person here today. Dare I say, people like you. That's right, you are here because you believe in a future where women and girls should live free from violence. Text 41444 to donate. Together, we're going above and beyond to reach this goal and to create a safer world for women and girls. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a little entertainment. So let me welcome Chris Matthews, one of the brightest stars in a new generation of social justice musicians.
My name is Chris Matthews, and I'm so honored to be one of the millions of voices mobilizing in solidarity with Global Rights for Women. The song I want to share with you is called For the Women with Steel in Their Bones, and I wrote it after watching Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testify. Survivors like her, survivors like my partner, survivors like so many women, their stories matter.
If I had $1 for every boys will be boys, I would buy some way to alter this madness and quiet this noise for the women with steel in their bones, the ones with titanium skin. I see you, I hear and believe you. May the truth win out in the end. And she could well be your daughter, your wife, your sister, your friend. May all little boys become much better men who respect and believe women. If I could turn back time for every woman and for every girl, I would change all of their minds about the things we accept from this world. To the women whispering me too, and the ones roaring out for their friends, I see you, I hear and believe you. May the truth win out in the end. And she could well be your daughter, your wife, your sister, your friend. May all little boys become much better men who respect and believe women. To all of you men and women with sons of your own, what and how you teach them the things you accidentally condone will shape who it is they become. The next 2 generations of men, when they see us, when they hear and believe us, the truth wins out in the end. And she could well be your daughter, your wife, your sister, your friend. May all little boys become much better men who respect and believe women. May all little boys become much better men who respect and believe women.
Wow, women with steel in their bones. Chris, I'm feeling the steel and my blood is full of rage, so I feel like no one is taking our power away. That was incredible. Now, I'd like to introduce someone who is definitely a woman with steel in her bones. Global Rights for Women is proud to say that we count among our many supporters Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Minnesota is so lucky to have this amazing champion for women and someone who has never backed down or compromised women when the unfairer sex has often asked us to back down. Amy's my friend, and I'm going to tell you right now, if Amy asks you to hold her purse to enter a fight, do it, because she is going to come back with the goods. Please help me welcome a fine and brilliant and hilarious Minnesotan, Senator Amy Kay.
Thank you to Lizz Winstead for that warm introduction. It's always great to be introduced by a fellow Minnesotan, and a funny one at that. And not to mention, her brother was a longtime mayor of one of my favorite places in Minnesota, Bloomington, Minnesota, and he did a great job. And Lizz, I wish I could see you in person right now. Hello to everyone gathered for Global Rights for Women Now. I'm glad to join you virtually. I want to thank Cheryl Thomas, the Executive Director of Global Rights for Women, for her commitment to this organization and these critical issues. I also want to thank all of the speakers who are joining today to share their stories. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for being here, taking up the fight to end violence against women and girls worldwide. Your efforts could not be more important. Right now, intimate partner violence is the most prevalent violence in the world, and domestic violence has spiked 20% since the coronavirus pandemic began. It's unacceptable that an estimated 736 million women, almost 1 in 3, have been subject to violence from an intimate partner, sexual violence from a non-partner, or both at least once in their life. And it's unacceptable that in spite of that horrific fact, 600 million women still live in countries without domestic abuse laws. Women and girls also face disproportionate challenges during conflicts, whether as victims in active war zones, or as refugees attempting to escape, or as citizens of countries in the aftermath of war. For these women, discrimination and gender-based violence are constant threats. I will always remember what a Syrian refugee that I met at a refugee camp in Jordan once told me. She said that what she had seen in her lifetime, the horror that she had witnessed in Syria, would, in her words, make stones cry. That stuck with me forever. You think about what these women have experienced or what people have observed when you see domestic violence at its worst. That's why we have to speak out, why we have to mobilize, why we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about this? Well, today, all of you are doing something really important. By supporting Global Rights for Women, you're supporting work to lift up the voices of survivors and advance laws, values, and practices to create safer communities for women and girls all across the country. And I am so honored to be your partner in the Senate, where I've helped lead efforts to finally reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, a landmark law that has had a profound role in protecting women and supporting the victims of sexual and domestic violence. I'm also leading the bill to close a dangerous loophole in the law that allows abusive dating partners to buy a gun simply because they aren't married to their victims. As one of our more conservative witnesses who once spoke in favor of my bill, a sheriff, said, you know, it doesn't matter if someone's married to someone or they're their boyfriend. They hit just as hard. The bill would also prevent convicted stalkers from owning a gun. When nearly half of women killed by an intimate partner are killed by a dating partner, it's critical that we take action now. But as you know from all your good work, yes, we need to take action locally in Minnesota, across our country. But what I love about what you do is you understand we have to do it globally. How else are we going to work as a world and to be able to have human rights across the world if we still have women being abused and we have countries that have no laws to protect them? Making that vision a reality will take coordination between governments and nonprofits, as well as cooperation across state and national borders. It will take all of us all the time, giving all we have to give. Thank you again to Global Rights for Women. With your help, we can achieve a violence-free future for women and girls. Keep up your great work.
Amy, thank you for all you do. Because let's just get real. We live in a time where women are still viewed as lesser than, where our rights seem to be constantly overlooked and even expendable. It's on all of us to make sure that we demand nothing less than full autonomy, equality, and justice. And by donating to Global Rights for Women today is your starting line, not your finish line, because this is where we start the work. Together, we're on the journey of a lifetime, and we are here to make sure we create an equitable and sustaining world for today's women and for generations of women to come. Thank you so much for joining us and for your generosity and for understanding that without Global Rights for Women in our court and in our world, we would have a world that is much scarier than the one we're in. Thank you.